Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We got a Raptors video. They play the Timberwolves later tonight. By the time a lot of you guys watch this video, I bet the Raptors have already dominated Minnesota to get right back up to tied for the 5th seed. I guess technically still the 6th seed because of the tiebreaker. But anyways, we're going to disregard playoff specific seeding for today's video. I actually want to go through a couple of opponents. Toronto will probably play in the first round of the playoffs, and I want to just give some comments on them. So welcome back to the channel, man. If you're new here, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I post daily Raptors content along with daily NBA content on the page. Raptor Nation, let's try and get this video to 150 likes. That would be absolutely awesome. You guys are keeping this channel alive, so I love you, Raptors Nation. Basically, and I've talked about this a lot, especially as of late. I've talked about this so much, it feels like all the time. Toronto can be any team in the Eastern Conference. Any team in the Eastern Conference can be any team in the Eastern Conference. I know that is blatantly obvious, but given the situation of everything that is going on right now on the East, I just feel like there is no team that necessarily sticks out like maybe Phoenix does in the Western Conference. Like, on the West, I look at Phoenix, I look at Memphis, I look at a healthy Golden State, and I'm like, damn, those are three really talented all-around basketball teams. With the top 4 seeds in the Eastern Conference specifically, there's holes. There's holes. I don't even want to classify my Chicago Bulls in there because we're not winning the finals most likely. Unless Lonzo Ball comes back, which isn't looking likely. Even if he does, the Bulls are in a very early point of their kind of retooling process. So let's use Miami right now. What scares me about Miami is they're number 1 in bench scoring. What doesn't scare me about Miami is for some reason, they just don't have like that it factor. I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is because I look at the roster and I'm like, all right, Kyle Lowry, really talented. Jimmy Butler, really talented. Bam Adebayo, really talented. And then you start getting a little bit lower, like PJ Tucker, super critical to the Bucks winning the championship last year. In fact, I don't even think they win the championship last year had they have not acquired PJ Tucker. Tyler Hero, 6th Man of the Year award. Duncan Robinson, Max Struss, like they have so many pieces. But for some reason, I don't know what it is, Miami, especially as of late, has not really put any fear into me, especially thinking about the Toronto Raptors playing them. To be honest with you, I would say Boston and Miami are the 2 teams that if Toronto were to match up with, I wouldn't be thinking, oh, they're definitely losing, but I wouldn't be as confident as I would be against, say, Philadelphia or Milwaukee, as crazy as that's going to sound to a lot of people. Miami right now is kind of a dumpster fire, but they're well coached. They have a lot of veterans on their roster. They'll figure things out. They'll figure things out. Thing is, you look back to last year, well, Milwaukee completely embarrassed that team. Completely embarrassed that team in the playoffs. So Miami, I don't know what it is. They just don't strike much fear into me, and it's probably because they're just, first off, their whole, like the first 75% of the season, they were really good, and I feel like they're one of the weakest 1 seeds that I've seen in a long time. Recently, kind of a dumpster fire. You're seeing like literal on-court fights between Udonis Haslem, who had, sorry Heat fans, 2 successful careers. Like Udonis Haslem literally thinks he's the president of frickin' everything because he had 2 good years and he just has longevity because he's rode the bench his whole goddamn career. But we're not flaming Udonis Haslem. I'll say no one goes after my Jimmy Butler. The G stands for Gist. Anyways, let's move on to Milwaukee. Now, Milwaukee is a terrifying franchise. They're not going to give a single damn what record or what seed they finish as, because they just won the finals last year. What scares me about Milwaukee is that they are so well coached. They have a phenomenal defense and they have a really solid offense. But what we saw 2 seasons ago, the wall, as Nick Nurse famously devised. I think that's a perfect word. It's like he's like hitting in the lab. You see Nick Nurse, he's in the lab. He's like, I got it. We're gonna It sounds so Trumpy. We're gonna build a wall. I can't even do that. Anyways, but basically they just assemble a wall against Giannis Antetokounmpo. We saw it with Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka. Well, you got Siakam, you got Scotty, you got OG, you got Precious. Like basically there are like over 10 players on the Raptors who are over 6'8" wingspan. So they're long. Toronto swept them in the season series. Swept the Milwaukee Bucks in the season series. Milwaukee's also been a team that's honestly kind of dealt with on and off injuries. If you were to ask me right now what's the finals matchup, and I had like a gun in my head, I would say Suns Bucks. I would say Suns Bucks rematch 100%. But if there's going to be a team to take down the Milwaukee Bucks, it is going to be the Toronto Raptors. It's going to be the Toronto Raptors who take them down. But they got a scary-ass big three, and they're just a really deep team in general with, obviously, your big three, Jrue Holiday, Chris Middleton, Giannis. But there's just something about Toronto guarding Giannis that doesn't really worry me. And it's the same thing, actually, with the Philadelphia 76ers. Like, basically, Philadelphia, first off, in my opinion, they haven't beaten many good teams. They almost beat Milwaukee last night. We saw a pretty good amount of star power from both squads, but we also saw some flaws and some weaknesses with both teams. The thing I'll say with this, with Philadelphia, is this. You guys see this flag behind me, so if you're a Harden really big fan, maybe X out of this video. Basically, they're going to run the same thing they've been doing in the 20 or so games that Harden's been there, and the whole freaking NBA career of James Harden, or not the whole career, I'm being dramatic. I just hate how he left the Houston Rockets. It was so sad. But anyways, what they're going to do is they're going to run Harden ISO ball the entire time. And when Harden ISO ball is not working, you give the ball or you pick and roll with Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid, if he is not getting anything, which honestly, when he plays Toronto, I don't think Joel Embiid is as dominant as he can be. I think it's something so weird because I'll hear people, and I'll get flamed for this every damn time when I say Toronto's getting out of the first round no matter who they play. I say that all the time, and it gets flamed so much. I'll be like, do you even watch Sixers-Raptors games? Like, Joel Embiid against Toronto, with or without James Harden, just has never really been good. They held Philadelphia, a fully healthy Philadelphia team, 2 weeks ago to 88 points. Philadelphia, I don't think, even if they were as good as they're advertised, I don't think that playing a quarter of the season is automatically getting them to the NBA Finals. Like, they've literally only played a quarter of games, 21 games, 24 games, whatever it's been, with their new unit. So I think it's a little too early for Philadelphia, but mainly the big thing is, and I'm a little more worried about, I'll touch on Harden in a second here. What I'm more worried about is if Joel Embiid, is getting locked down or whatever, and he kicks it out. Tobias Harris, phenomenal basketball player. Tyrese Maxey, phenomenal basketball player. Matisse Thybulle, phenomenal basketball player. 2 out of those 3s, Maxey, Harris, they're going to try and put 20 on your head every single night. So Toronto's defense has to be on point with those 2 players especially, which there's concern because if you're playing Joel Embiid, if you're playing James Harden, you're going to want to, or there's going to be a lot of help. So that's my concern with Philadelphia when I think of their other players. The thing is, though, they have James Harden. And James Harden in the playoffs is just not James Harden. The calls don't get called the same. Same thing will go for Joel. The calls just are not going to be called the same way. Lanes are going to close. So unless James Harden is draining everything he takes, which I'm willing to bet the under on that, I think Toronto takes care of Philadelphia. And lastly, we have the team that I am afraid of, fully healthy, the Boston Celtics. So I don't think it would be that crazy to say Toronto first round against Boston. I don't think they would have Robert Williams. We got announcement today, actually, that the MRI came back and that they're going to place a 4 to 6 week timeline on Robert Williams, but that Boston is adamant and feeling hopeful that he returns before then. So realistically, with the playoffs starting in a little over 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks from now, I would have to say Boston probably is going to have Robert Williams. So that's the team that I do not want to play. The Boston Celtics. I do not want the Raptors to play the Boston Celtics in the first round of the playoffs if it could be avoided, because Boston this season, defensively, unbelievably phenomenal, and offensively, they've got it every single night, as the Raptors, as we all saw a couple of nights ago, when even when you're without 4 of your 5 starters, just thought of something, even when you're without 4 of your 5 starters, they're still capable of putting up over 115. It is interesting to note, I got a lot of comments about this, and maybe you guys can help me out in the comment section again, but like, apparently I don't know if it was Tatum and Brown's whose vaccination status, like they might not have gotten vaccinated. Although when I really think about that, I'm like, well, I feel like Boston is very similar to New York as far as like, wouldn't they also have vaccine mandates? But I could be 100% wrong. Don't take my word at it. But I did see a lot of rumblings in the comment section and on Twitter that there might be some, maybe it was like Horford and Brown. It was like 2 players on the Celtics where there was like an up in the air vaccination status. So comment down below if you understand what's going on with that. But that's a huge thing for Toronto, is playing in Canada. Like, you have to be vaccinated. So I'm pretty sure, right? That's why Kyrie could not play home games against Toronto. That's why the Brooklyn Nets aren't even like a minuscule threat. They also needed like KD to drop 50 to beat, who did they just beat the other night? And KD had to drop 50 in order to do it. They're like 9-13 with Kyrie Irving. We're not even going to talk about the Nets. That's it for today. Drop a comment down below. Who do you want the Toronto Raptors to match up with in the first round? Peace.